Good afternoon and welcome to the City Council meeting of May 6th, 2024. I call this meeting to order and ask that you all rise for the singing of our national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God, keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you to the National Film Board for the images of our country and to our very own Tennille Towns for the singing of our national anthem. I must say, without Councillor Thiessen and O'Connor and O'Toole in the room, it's a little quiet, but I'm sure they were singing as loud as they could. I would like to take this opportunity to read our land acknowledgement. This city respectfully acknowledges the Beaver, Cree, Dene, and Métis people as the original caretaker of these lands and surrounding areas. We are grateful to live, learn, work, and play on Treaty 8 territory within Turtle Island, and acknowledge these lands have been home to the diverse First Nation and sovereign First Nations, and Inuit nations since time immemorial. Thank you for that. It's very timely as we have our official opening ceremonies of the National Aboriginal Hockey Championships tonight. And so if you're watching online and you are not aware, we are the first Alberta community to host these games. 14 teams, 7 men, 7 women, kicked off this morning at 8 a.m. with the first men's game and 8:15 with the first women's game. And tonight, the Alberta men play at 8:30 against Saskatchewan. So please go out and cheer for Team Alberta. Recognizing that we have a proclamation today, and then I will go to you, Councillor O'Connor, because I'm thinking your hand is up to do some business. Unless you wanted to read the proclamation. Okay, perfect. Thank you for the opportunity, Councillor O'Connor. I appreciate that. So if you weren't aware, this week is Economic Development Week in Alberta, and we are going to, I'm going to read this proclamation, then we're going to take a picture with some of our team from InvestGP. But first, Economic Development Week from May 6th to 10th, whereas for 50 years, Economic Developers Alberta has been Alberta's leading economic development network, committed to advancing the economic development profession by providing resources, professional development, and networking opportunities. And whereas communities rely on economic development professionals to promote economic well-being and quality of life, for communities like Grande Prairie, that means coordinating activities that create, retain, and expand jobs to facilitate growth, enhance wealth, and provide a stable tax base. And whereas economic developers stimulate and incubate entrepreneurialism to help establish the next generation of new businesses, which is the hallmark of Alberta's economy, and attract and retain high-quality jobs, develop vibrant communities, and improve the quality of life in their region. And whereas economic developers are engaged in a wide variety of settings, including rural and urban, local, state, provincial, and federal governments, private-public partnerships, chambers of commerce, universities, and a variety of other institutions. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Jackie Clayton, do hereby proclaim May 6th to 10th, 2024 as Economic Development Week in the City of Grande Prairie, and remind individuals of the importance of this community celebration, which supports the expansion of career opportunities and improving the quality of life. So thank you for that. And I'm going to ask Council to step around into the horseshoe and our members from InvestGP to join us, and we'll take a quick picture. Thank you for those online for your patience. We are now moving on to item number 5, and I'll recognize Councillor O'Connor. Thank you for patiently waiting.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'd like to move that Council adopt the minutes of the City Council meeting held April 22nd as presented.
Okay, that motion is in order. Councillor Blackmore, are you for the next item? Okay, so seeing no one in the queue with comments or questions, I will call the question. Please vote. Councillor O'Toole, maybe just give us your verbal vote for this one. Oh, now you're in. Never mind. Carried unanimously. Thank you for that. Moving on to item number 6, recognizing Councillor Blackmore.
I'd move that council adopt the agenda as amended to add 8.3. Is that what we added? Aquatera Appointments.
Yep. Perfect. Thank you for that. So the agenda has been amended to add another additional item, item 8.3. So that motion is in order. Seeing no one in the queue with comments, questions, concerns, I'll call the question. Please vote. And that's carried unanimously. So normally at this time we would have delegations if there were any, but there are none tonight. Just for those who might be watching online, you are invited to come speak to council at any council meeting. They happen every 2 weeks. The 3 p.m. session, we always have the 3 p.m. session, so there's always an opportunity there. If you do want to speak in an evening session, because it suits your schedule better. Those don't always happen, so we ask you to fill out some paperwork ahead of time. So A, we know you're coming. B, we know what you want to talk about so that we're sure we have some of the appropriate people in the room if council may have questions or need support from administration. So it's a really simple form online. That being said, there are no delegations today and there's no evening session today, so we're going to move on to reports. Under reports, the first one, item 8.1, proposed recreation site facility site selection. This is, if you recall, if the public recalls, in regards to the dome structure, a recreation facility initially, and I'll rephrase that, it's a proposed recreation facility, and I will turn this over to Ms. Cajolet for introduction.
Thank you, through the chair. During the public engagement program, 2 potential sites for the indoor recreation facility were considered. Site 4, north of the pickleball courts, and Site 5, south of the courts. Both sites offer opportunities for storm and water servicing with retention ponds. Site 4 impacts sport fields used for rugby, football, and soccer, but receives slightly more support due to its distance from residential areas. Site 5 affects a ball diamond and practice field and could face potential challenges with sanitary services. Further collaboration with athletic user groups will be needed, especially for Site 4, given its impact on existing track and field amenities and upcoming events. The city continues to collaborate with the County of Grande Prairie and school division partners on the proposed facility development. With that, administration recommends that council identify a preferred site for the proposed recreation facility, and additionally, that council direct administration to continue negotiations with the appropriate school division for development of the selected site.
Perfect. So just to confirm, Ms. Casually, you have obviously opportunity for council to ask questions, but the outcome of today is for council to identify a site, and from there you will go and work with the appropriate school board, correct?
Through the mayor, yes, that would be the expectation.
Excellent. So council, an opportunity for questions. I'm going to go to Councillor O'Connor first so that I don't miss his hand up, and then I'll go for the rest in the queue. Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Clayton. I don't have a question, as I think we have most of the information that we need. Just hoping this continues, and I'll do business when the time comes around.
Okay. Councillor Thiessen with a question for administration.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. Just a question in regards to the use of the... So one of the sites has this building over top of the old baseball diamond field there. What's the usage of that space? Does it get used? Is it just a deteriorating field? I'm just trying to get a feeling as to, of the use of that field.
And just for those who might be following in line, Councillor Thiessen, to confirm, you're referring to option 5, correct?
Yeah, option 5 with the placement of the facility in the south.
Perfect.
Of the site.
So, Ms. Casually, do you happen to know what that space is currently being utilized for in the map on option 5?
Thank you, through the chair. So currently the ball diamond is being used by user groups as well as the school, and there is a practice field that is utilized just to the north of the ball diamond, and I would say that gets used on almost a daily basis by the school divisions.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
All right. Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I just have a couple of questions about the sanitary servicing on site number 4, which is actually my preferred site. That's not readily available, and you say likely necessitating off-site improvements and/or lift station, whereas Site 5, sanitary services may require considerations due to existing utility depths. So I'm taking it to mean that we would have to move utilities to a lower depth in order to put a building on that site. I'm wondering if the cost between those two things is significant or relatively minor. I don't know if you would have an idea about that, or if maybe Chief Glavin would.
Ms. Casually, sorry.
Thank you, through the chair. So the total cost estimated for that, potentially some of that work, in addition to the intersection, if the 105 Street is extended right through, was estimated to be approximately $15 million. I don't have detailed estimates related to just the sport facility, unless Chief Glavin would like to have something to add.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I'd have to get something separated out. Certainly it won't be $15 million. There's no reason to build the intersection as part of either of these options. That's something that council can consider discreetly from this decision. But depending on the size of the lift station, at minimum, if it had to go in, it would be, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars for a lift station. But it really depends on a lot of things. It could be just off-peak pumping that's not associated with the neighborhood. But again, it depends on the scale that you want to do. Like if we're looking to intensify development in the area, that may require a lift station for other development. Otherwise, there's likely a much cheaper option. But until they get into detailed design, I wouldn't be confident giving a firm answer today. Okay.
So I'm going to take that to mean that I don't need to worry about that particular part of the decision when I make my decision, that it's not going to be overwhelming.
Ms. Casually?
Thank you, through the chair. It would be anticipated that additional information would be brought back to council. Okay.
Yeah, and so I just wanted to dig in that comment a little bit further. Chief Glavin, you mentioned intensification, and if I recall from the master plan of the area, intensification happens at a much later date when the Peace Wapiti Academy were to move somewhere else. So I think it's valuable for council to understand if a lift station, et cetera, is required for the recreation facility, because I didn't think that it was.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Ultimately, until detailed design was done, I wouldn't be confident giving you a firm answer today, but I don't believe, and again, I would be looking to Stephanie, who's been much more involved in the detailed planning for these sites, but I'm not aware of a significant piece of infrastructure that's required. But in the long term, there will be sanitary upgrades necessary as the master plan for that area, I should say the area redevelopment plan, is fulfilled. And there was some work that council did approve to do some of that planning in the capital plan that'll be undertaken here over the next year.
For sure. And I think that, but to Councillor Blackmore's point, I think that any additional work, including a lift station, has quite a bit of significant bearing on the decision between the site locations. So hoping, to ask council to make a decision between two locations, it would be valuable to have all the cost information in front of us before we're making these decisions. So I'll leave it at that for now. I know you don't have it with you. I'll take the other questions and we can come back to that. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I'm just curious, when I look at the comp site that's now been demolished, if we were to go with option 5 with the parking lot, what can we still fit on that for green space? There was a conceptual drawing done at one point that showed soccer fields and ball diamonds on the comp site. Just curious if you would have that available, and if not, I'm just wondering, with putting the parking lot there, are we still able to put ball diamonds and soccer fields in there? Is it still big enough to do a multitude of sports there?
Yeah, I think Ms. Cagelet, council previously would have seen drawings that included a potential swimming pool in that location of the previous comp site, as well as recreation space, assuming that if council approved the Avondale option 5, parking lot was intended to be the buffer between houses and other recreational amenities, but maybe you can expand on what those recreational amenities could be on the former footprint of the former comp.
Thank you, through the mayor. The intention certainly would be to put some sport fields where the leisure center previously was, and then where the school building was, to replace that or situate some ball diamonds on that space. I think the potential parking lot was part of that initial plan, but at worst case scenario, we may just need to realign some of the amenities. But there still will be opportunity for field or recreation amenities to be added to that site.
Okay, so this is kind of similar to the last question. It kind of plays into my decision, because I like the idea of it there, but what I'm concerned about with the parking lot there is that we don't get to utilize the old comp site as actual grass space with that parking lot there. And I'm just wondering if maybe administration can find it just before we make a decision on what the kind of options were, and then with that parking lot sitting there, can we still fit a soccer field and a ball diamond or two, or is it kind of making it where we can't fit as much stuff on that? Appreciating that we're going to lose a ball diamond in one scenario and a soccer field or a rugby field in the other one. Just wondering if we could limit that. My other question for administration is, have we done any counts or decisions as far as how much parking we need? Just wondering again on option 5, if it went in currently, and if school wasn't in use, and if during the day that utilization probably being lower with schools probably using it, do we need the other parking lot at all? I guess I'm still curious about whether we need the other parking space or not. In either location. It shows on option 4 that we would be building a new parking facility, but option 5, the new parking is over in this space. So have we determined for sure we need that much more parking?
So just to clarify, the potential parking lot, because we were removing some of the spot of the existing parking and then potential parking in option 4, your question is, has there been any guesstimation of what parking space the facility needs?
Yeah, because both of them have proposed parking either way. I'm just wondering.
And minimal usage in the day in the facility, just high school parking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm
just casually, do you have any information in regards to parking and potential, how much more parking actually needs to be added with the addition of the recreation facility?
Thank you, through the chair. So depending on the size of the facility would determine the number of parking spaces to be available. We certainly, within the Avondale site, would currently achieve that. So there was council direction when the public engagement was done to identify the parking sites as potential parking opportunities. I would say that in conversation with the school divisions, both school divisions have recognized that parking is at a premium, so would certainly be supportive of that additional parking for the facility, but a specific number has not been confirmed.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just going to follow up on Councillor Plott's comments in regards to parking. Has there been any consideration if additional parking is added but not necessarily required? Has there been any conversations with the school district, as parking would be a nice to have for the high schools? Maybe they're interested in partnering in that parking space.
Through the chair, thank you for the question. No, that conversation hasn't taken place, but certainly open to having that.
Perfect. Councillor Burke.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Clayton. I like both spots equally as much, so kind of the potential tiebreaker in two different ways. Would it cost more short-term to develop the north site than the south site?
Well, I think that's what Ms. Cajolet is guessing,
okay.
But at this point, we don't have the information unless you have something additional to add, Ms. Cajolet.
Thank you, through the chair. Based on conversations with engineering, based on the height difference of the location to the road and just water pooling and that sort of thing, it is anticipated that the north site, so north of the pickleball field or pickleball court, will cost more to service.
Okay, and then just to follow up, do we anticipate any potential delays? So let's assume if we pick the south site, we could have it up and running by next fall. If we have to put services in and potential parking lots and roads, would that add an extra year potentially to the opening of this facility?
Ms. Cajolet.
Thank you, through the chair. It is anticipated that if a decision was made in the near future that the facility, the competitive bid process could go out and the facility could potentially be developed for use for the fall winter season of 2025. There was no, if there was a desire to make road enhancements, then that certainly could impact that project. But
okay, so each are equal in that category then?
Through the chair, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have no one else in the queue. Oh, I apologize. Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I really enjoyed a lot of discussion, checking off some of my boxes. I guess just a comment on the infrastructure. I think this is a relatively old neighborhood. Once we start digging into the utilities, we're going to find that there's a cost associated, and it's likely a total replacement cost, whether we go to the north of the site or the south of the site. So that's just my thoughts. I don't know if that's the reality. The other part of it is I really like option 4. Now, in regards to the parking, part of the reasons why I like option 4 is it's set away from the high school. So if we're going to put parking in there, most of the students, I'm thinking, are like most human beings. They're going to try to park as close to the front door as possible. So I guess in that regards, to administration, my question is in regards to the parking. And just for Site 4, I mean, we can understand that likely maybe a third of that parking lot is going to be open for parking, similar to when we had the leisure center and the soccer pitch is open for people just coming for day use while the high school kids are going there. What was the reasoning? We've extended the parking on option 4 pretty much all the way to the bypass. So I'm just trying to wonder what informed administration to extend the parking that long, at least in this diagram, or do you think that we would have enough parking if we maybe halved or cut that into a third of what the additional parking extension would look like?
Ms. Cajolet.
Thank you, through the Mayor. So the drawings attached to the report are simply conceptual drawings. So the parking lot, once the facility size is confirmed and the actual number of parking spaces identified for the area, that could certainly be adjusted.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor O'Connor.
Just a quick question to Ms. Cajolet. I thought I heard her say that on Site 5, it would remove that fully operational baseball diamond and the training field on the north side of it. And that there, did I hear it right, Ms. Cajolet, that you would be possibly there would be a depth issue that would have to be corrected for underground services?
Ms. Cajolet.
Thank you, through the chair. Certainly, engineering has indicated that there may be some special considerations related to sanitary services at Site 5 due to the utility depths.
Thank you. That's what I thought I heard. So I'm ready to do business if there's no one else in the queue.
There is, thanks. And following on that, so there is special engineering, additional engineering required on Site 5. There's potential additional engineering required on Site 4. So there's additional engineering required regardless, but we don't know the price difference between the two engineering. Is that correct?
Through the chair, yes, that is correct.
Okay. Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you. Could you remind me of what our plan is? And maybe this is the next conversation that Council's going to have in item 8.2. So my apologies for getting ahead, but what's the plan in terms of things like washrooms, change rooms? Are we proposing that those would be able to be in the footprint that we're seeing on the screen with those rectangles, or would those be in addition to?
Ms. Cajolet.
Thank you, through the chair. As part of the initial facility development, it was anticipated that those resources or amenities would be external to the structure, so to allow for potential expansion opportunities, but certainly administration is open to council direction on that.
Well, and I'm just a little bit confused in terms of, I personally prefer Site 5, but there's just a really tiny little auxiliary space, and I'm assuming that's not what this is. I'm assuming that's for the HVAC stuff and the fans, but am I wrong about that?
Ms. Cajolet.
Through the chair, no, that is estimated dimensions for change room and washroom space, but again, certainly it is something that could be amended based on council direction.
My assumption is wrong, so I'm glad I asked. Thank you.
So with that, I feel like the costs are kind of uncertain. We're not sure of the engineering costs. It's flexible in regards to parking. It's flexible in regards to space for amenities. So when do we actually have a conversation about the true cost? Because council at this point has only identified $10 million.
Thank you, through the chair. It's difficult to get actual costs without going through an RFQ or a competitive process. So certainly there could be direction to hire a cost consultant to help us do that work, or we could certainly put the bid out to market for some budget quotes.
Thanks. Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I guess for me, looking at the recommendation here to pick a site and then to further negotiations with the school divisions, are we tied in to, like, depending what these costs come back coming in and depending on how the negotiations go, are we tied in to this one site? Because I'm not ready to be tied into one specific site. I wonder why we can't do negotiations with both and see where we fit, which works best for the city and for the schools. So I guess my question is, if we choose one tonight, which I'm not ready to choose yet, do these negotiations stand firm? and we just pick essentially the school division tonight too.
I'm just going to get our CAO to chime in here.
So what we'd be seeking direction on is a preferred site where we would go away and negotiate and come back to council with the findings of that. To answer the question, are we locked in? No. But we do need, we would appreciate it being narrowed down so that we can focus the discussions with one or the other. So that was the intent of today, but no, we're not locked in. We would come back to council with what the arrangement could be with either school district pending those discussions.
Thank you.
Councillor Blackmore. All right. So let's get a motion on the floor for discussion and debate, recognizing Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'd like to move that Council identified option 4 as the preferred site for the proposed recreation facility and direct administration to continue negotiations with the appropriate school division for the development of the selected site. And one of the reasons, the why, is I'm concerned of the height of the building right beside this beautiful high school. It's going to be 80 feet tall, which blocks out their whole view to the north, and the movement of that baseball diamond and the parking on the other side. I'd love to see the development on that where they tore down the school, and see that being allowed for other recreation facilities or rugby field or whatever fields we need. So I would appreciate if you vote for this. If this doesn't work, then we'll look at another option. Thank you. Please vote in favor.
All right, so I have a couple of people in the queue. I just have one question before we go to the queue, Ms. Cagelet. Council confirms a preferred location today. You go away and have conversations with the appropriate school district. It comes back to council again. So there is still an opportunity for council to have input on this, because maybe through exploration of engineering, the price come in at something council's not comfortable with. There's other variables there. So there will be another check-in point, decision point for council. Is that correct?
Thank you. Through the mayor, yes, it is anticipated there will be another council check-in.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I will be supporting this motion as I feel the northern site, Site 4, is the most comfortable for the community itself. There would be very little interference with residential use of their yards. And as Councillor O'Connor said, it sets the school apart and makes it more of an icon in the community. Having said that, if this comes back to us as being untenable, I will certainly be comfortable changing my mind at a later date.
My apologies. I need a moment to chat with the CAO because I may have an amendment. Okay, so I'm just gonna bring up a point, and if one of my colleagues wants to make this amendment, great. If not, I'll probably hand over the chair to debate it. For me, I think option 4 is the better location. My concern is utilization. And so in the negotiation of utilization, I believe that the public school district should have a 50% usage in that facility. This facility will be paid by residents that live in the city, and therefore I think public school students should have equal access to this facility. And so my amendment would be, I'm just looking for the current motion so I can amend it appropriately. Give me 1 second. So identifying option 4 as the preferred site for the proposed recreation facility I'll leave it at that. I'll come back with the suggested wording if one of my colleagues is looking to take the amendment for me. I guess it would be with provision for 50% usage of the public school district and 50% usage of the Peace Wapiti Academy or Peace Wapiti School District. So Mr. Burke had something to chime in, but I will say to council, if you want to talk about the specifics of the of this arrangement, I would suggest we go in camera. My motion, as sort of my preferred motion, if one of my colleagues will take it, at a high level is a public conversation. However, if you want to speak about very fine specifics of the agreement, then I would suggest we go in camera. Did you have anything else to add? Okay. Can I clear the queue and ask that we talk, somebody give me a hands up if they're willing to take my amendment for me? And if, okay.
I got my hand up already.
Okay.
Yeah, same here.
Okay, so on Councillor O'Toole, if you were willing to take my amendment, I'll go to you next in the queue.
Yes, I am.
Okay, so, and are you in agreement of the wording that within the, that it has a provision for public school district to have 50% access to the site?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with your motion, and I would make that
amendment. Mr. Burke.
I'd suggest we go in camera. There's some information I'd bring forward that I think would be suitable to negotiations.
Okay, perfect. So I need Councillor Bressie make a motion to go in camera, please.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I move we go in camera.
Okay. I will give everybody we'll vote on going in camera, and then I'll give everybody who's not part of this conversation a chance to leave. Please vote on the motion to go in camera. Councillor O'Toole, how do you vote?
in favor.
That carries unanimously. It's having a little bit. There we go. Thank you for your patience as we had an in-camera discussion. A reminder, in-camera discussions are on contractual agreements, land agreements, and also labor discussions. There is now, I have a couple people in the queue, and I'll recognize Councillor Berg next.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. Again, I'm quite happy with both sites, should we choose one or the other. When I sit back and weigh the two options, one of the things that does concern me is costs and costs rising. And from what I can see and what we're potentially being told is the north side could potentially cost more. And that causes uncertainty in my vote. Knowing that we could change down the road, I think today I am going to go for the south side. Again, just due to unknown costs. But should we see a report and says that costs for the north are better, then I could easily be swayed.
Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. Yeah, this has been a great discussion, very interesting. Myself personally, as to the motion, I am in preference of Site 4. I think we'll probably find that it's likely the best place, and I'd like to do that from the start off and not in hindsight. Some of the issues that I take with the South Field is first off, in our budgets, we know that to rebuild and reconstruct a baseball diamond is going to cost the city a minimum of $750,000. So once we erase that from that site, which is being used by user groups currently, then we're one less diamond in the city of Grande Prairie that we're going to have to rebuild for a minimum of $750,000 cost. And that got me thinking, how much does a soccer field cost to do all the grading and stuff? I figure probably less than half of that. The other thing for me is I like lessons learned. And when we built the community knowledge campus and when we had the CKC all put together and we put in Charles Spencer School to go along with the Eastlink Center, one thing I guess we were a little slow on adapting to was the roadways. And what we found for at least the first 9 months was that we created a really atrocious bottleneck inside that complex for people who were there just to pick up their kids. And I imagine if we cram another large facility right next door to the high school, which the parking lot is likely going to be full most of the time with the kids going to school during the school year, all of a sudden, as people are trying to get in to use the facility, maybe early in the morning, around 9 or 10, they have to walk a long distance just to enter into the facility with their kids. Or maybe they're just seniors going for a walk, and now they have to walk on icy roads in the winter. The other thing is kids are going to be leaving school at about 3 or 4. Like, that's going to be a very busy time, especially in that area, especially if we lock all the buildings onto one corner. And then it becomes a safety issue as well. I imagine families with small kids trying to cross the street from the extra parking lot that we might create with the Southside Field, and young drivers trying to get in and out of school as fast as possible, maybe not paying attention as much as they should. So I know it's some sort of doomsdaying, but the other thing that I heard, especially from the residents, is that they were concerned about the shadow and about losing their glorious sunset in the beautiful Grande Prairie sky. Well, if we put a soccer dome on that field, as Councillor O'Connor stated, not only is it going to block the beautiful north-facing view of those big windows of that wonderful composite high school, but it's also going to cut out the entire skyscape for anybody who previously would have enjoyed their sunsets from their neighborhood just looking across there. Now they got a big high school in front of them and a big dome in front of them, not to mention a large shadow that's going to loom over them in the winter months, which is, obviously not going to do anything for seasonal depression disorder or anybody who might be suffering from that. So as I start looking into this, I do understand we're going to have big costs in infrastructure and stuff like that. But I think the logical place to land for me and where my vote's going to go today is to the north side as per the motion. Thank you for listening.
Just to clarify one of your comments in regards to the cost of a ball diamond, Ms. Cajolet, can you recall? I thought in your report you mentioned that the grading of the land was included in the demolition or the reclamation of the property. Do you know the additional costs of the ball diamond?
Thank you, through the mayor. Yes, the grading work will be done as part of the demolition process, and I would defer the second question related to ball diamond construction to Chief Glavin.
Chief Glavin.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I'd have to get back to you with the costing. We recently built some ball diamonds, but they're on a unique terrain in that they were on top of a former landfill.
Right.
So I'd have to get the costs separated out for the installation after the groundwork was done, and that's something I can get, but I won't be able to get it for today.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I'll also be supporting this motion on option 4. The concern I have is more of the parking. I like the parking being linear to the building, and I think the utilization of the parking, I agree with Councillor Thiesen's comments about the potential congestion if we put it all in one spot, but I just worry what we could do to that potential site and a beautiful green space if we start sticking a parking lot in there, and it might just change whether we can have 2 ball diamonds now maybe it's only 1, or 2 soccer pitches now it's only 1. So I don't like the idea of the long-term planning of putting it on number 5. I also like the idea of number 4 when I think of the long-term planning as far as PWA at some point coming down and this being commercial land. I like this being right by the commercial land a lot more than tucked over by the school. I think it actually adds more value to the commercial land being there as well. So I'm fully in support of option 4.
Councillor Bressy.
Great, thank you, Mayor Clayton. For me personally, I can't support option 4. I want to be close to the Comstead High School. I think that makes gym classes a lot easier. I know there was talk about aesthetics of this being right next to a pretty school, while it's also, I like the aesthetics of being further away from the bypass than possible. So for me, I prefer option 4 to option 5. I'll admit my choice between the 2 options, though, is pretty marginal. For me, I honestly don't support our current direction, period. Especially now in the subsequent report, I've seen the costs of a fabric-clad building that I think are quite reasonable. I think we should be going for a different build option than a dome. And I think if we're not going for a dome and the height that requires, the conversation with the neighborhood's a lot different in terms of being able to place on the old comp, the old leisure center land. And my biggest concern that I'm sharing all along is I think planning for just this one facility, we're being short-sighted. We don't need another pool on the north side of the city yet, but I think we will eventually. I think this is perfect land for that. I think we should be building a type of building that's made to be expandable to accommodate future recreation needs in the city. And we're not going to get that with either option 4 or option 5, so I can't support this motion.
See, Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I will be in favor of this motion. I do want to get something done. And the longer that you wait and the years that you wait, people aren't playing soccer. They're not playing rugby. They're not going for walks. They're not using a facility that can be used like immediately, like planting a tree. We're like behind. So, but I will say, however, that if the costs come in and they're unreasonable, and if there is issues with negotiations, I'm willing to change the location, because there really isn't a huge variance for me as far as where it goes, but I do like 4 for now.
I'll just jump in the queue before I call the question. I will support the current motion as it is indicating the preferred site. End of the day, this will come back to council for a final check-in once we see a true estimate on engineering, as well as with conversations in regards to usage from all school districts. And so I look forward to the additional conversation. For now, I think this provides administration an opportunity to go forward on what could be the location. But it's the motion, I like it today because it says the preferred site and it's not a final decision. So seeing no one else in the queue, I'll call the question.
Don't I get to close?
My apologies. Did you want to close, Councillor O'Connor?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Speaking to this, because of the parking issues, buildings too high, accessibility, the amount of congestion, and that we will have to do a lot more planning for this area if we plan on going in the future. Having a swimming pool complex, I think, is important to put one on the north side, but this is going to slow this down in the process, and we need to be able to put this on planning for other people in the future. So please support this motion. Thank you.
Call the question. That carries 6-3. Moving on to item 8.2. Give me 1 second here. Ms. Casually, in regards to the proposed recreation facility update.
Thank you, through the chair. Public engagement sessions in November 2023 showed strong community support for the proposed recreation facility, highlighting its potential to address indoor recreation gaps and accommodate growing sports participation. This report presents alternative facility sizes, possible configurations, and various structural options for consideration. Additionally, the report includes utilization information for various recreation facilities, programs, and spaces. The city continues to work closely with the school division partners and the County of Grande Prairie related to facility development. Once the specific needs for the indoor facility have been determined, administration can begin developing the detailed scope of work required to begin the procurement process. Administration recommends that Council provide direction regarding the specific requirements for the proposed recreation facility.
All right. Recognizing Councillor Blackmore. Opportunity for questions for administration.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. My understanding is, Ms. Casulet, that the height requirement of a dome is due to the structure of the dome itself and not due to the height requirement for any sports being played in the dome. Is that correct?
Ms. Casulet?
Yes, through the chair, yes, that is correct.
So if we were to go with a steel frame fabric covered building, as an example, the height requirement could be significantly less, like half the height, relatively.
Through the chair, yes, certainly there is potential for the height of the facility to be less. That work hasn't been done yet, so I honestly wouldn't be comfortable in speculating on the potential ratio.
I'm not really sure what we're solving with this coming forward today, but if it is to pick any particular type of structure, I would not be terribly supportive of a dome. I look at a fabric construction as being, I think of some of the fabric and steel frame buildings that I'm aware of, such as the Butter Dome at the University of Alberta, the Reach Center at People's Church. Those buildings have really long lifespans. I'm sure the Butter Dome is approaching 50 years. And I feel that value for dollar and aesthetically, we are better ahead of the game for a fabric structure. And so I would ask, I guess, the city manager, what are we determining right now with this particular item on the agenda?
Mr. Burke?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. If narrowing down the scope allows us to go to RFP to start to finalize some of these costs, as well as begin the engineering, because they are different depending on what structure we go with. If we've given some estimates based on the information we'll be able to receive from some vendors, we've gone as far as we can before going to the next step of doing an RFP. So if there's a preference from council, we can advance that work and go to RFP. I'd be uncomfortable saying we should go look at all of them just based on square footage at the moment, and just the level of effort we'd be putting in with that. So if there's some direction from council on, we can narrow it down, we can move faster on this. It's really where we're at.
My personal preference is that we at least have a good look at what a steel frame fabric building would cost and what it would require logistically. And another aspect that we haven't really talked about is how much cost difference would there be operationally. We know that the utility costs for a dome are typically very high. I don't know if they're as high for a fabric structure. So I'd be interested in knowing more about that. I'm not interested at this point in time in building a steel on steel building or a steel on wood building, as I think that there's cheaper and more efficient options available, and we need to move this forward. So that's where I stand.
Mr. Burke, you had an additional comment?
Yeah, just thinking through some of the options here. Picking a specific model of construction would likely be a little bit faster for us. We can narrow it down. One other alternative is that we have the parameter set as the square footage, and we leave it open to different vendors providing options without being exclusive to one or the other. Potentially that could extend it a little bit here, but it would also be a fair and transparent process, and we'd be able to get multiple offers on the proposal. So setting the square footage in that case would be the most important thing. So that is an alternative.
All right. Councillor Plott.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'm just curious. So we're talking about structures. We haven't done any costing other than a dome at this point, if I'm correct.
There's some preliminary sort of costing in your report on page 9 of 16.
Oh, I missed that.
And also 3 of 16.
Yeah, like I guess for me, I'm more worried about the timing, to be honest. I'm very concerned. I love the idea of us building a more permanent building. When I think about the debt servicing costs of a $60 or $70 million hypothetical steel building versus a $10 million dome, which other cities of Fort Saskatchewan is looking at doing something similar. Their bill was $60 million when I talked to one of their councillors. Sure, the utilities might be a little bit higher, but to Councillor Blackmore's point, life expectancy is really long on this. We're not going to save nearly enough debt servicing to go with that. So, I'm happy to make a motion today that we go with a 135,000 foot dome structure or synthetic structure, so we get a conversation going. I don't want us to keep going back and forth, going around user groups and talking about new buildings. We're not going to see this in our term if we do that. Our community is bursting at the seams, upset that we're already not doing something. So I don't want to see us have further delays. If some point down the road other user groups come forward, that's our job to help the other user groups. We've pretty much heard loud and clear that this is a need in our community right now. So if that helps administration, 135,000 square foot, either dome or synthetic, you can go to RFP both. If that's something that admin can do, I'm getting a head nod. That would be my preference to get it going and come back with that.
So to clarify that a little bit, your motion will be to direct administration to bring back, or to go ahead and RFI in regards to a dome structure as well as a fabric structure. And in the report, it currently talks about life expectancy, et cetera, but that information could be included.
Yeah.
Okay. That motion is in order. Recognizing Councillor Bressie.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I got a couple questions for administration. The first one is, when you talk about an RFP, I'm confused about what's the next step for RFP. Is it we're asking somebody to design something for us, or we're looking at moving on a design build? Just what exactly is the next step?
Mr. Burke?
Don't know if we've thought that far ahead. We were trying to get it narrowed down on what we'd look at and work with procurement. I don't know if Chief Whiteway's had any discussions. No, none with procurement at this stage. We could take some direction on whether this was design build or not, or we could go away and work out those options. I'd even be open to bringing that back as a check-in, the direction we were headed at a future meeting. We could proceed with that work in developing what the RFX is, I'll call it, as I'm not sure if it'll be RFI or if it'll be an RFP at this point. So RFX is our generic term.
So then just, I'm wondering if Councillor Plow would be willing to take a friendly amendment to change this to RFX?
Sorry, yes, I would be.
Then one other question, if I may, Mayor Clayton?
Sure, go ahead.
I don't know if our CFO has it at her fingertips or not, but I'm curious when we built our budget around building a dome, how long we plan to sorry, I might have told you I was asking a different question I'm asking. How long were we planning to debt service that over?
CFO Whiteway?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. 20 years was what we had estimated for useful life, or to be at least within the useful life. So we technically borrow for less than the useful life. So I'd assume that this would be in utilization for greater than 20 years.
Yeah, so then I just point out in the conversation of what's cheaper operationally, Councillor plotted fabric structure is about $5 million more than a dome structure, according to the report we've got. And the thing to take into account is utility operations, but also then you do get debt service that over 30ish years instead of 20, which does make a very big difference on the monthly cost as well. I just highlight that.
And just to be clear, Ms. Whiteway, you said you debt service it less than the life expectancy. Our report says the lifespan is 20 years. So we're actually debt servicing it for its full life expectancy.
My apologies, and maybe Ms. Casually can speak more, but we do typically borrow for just short of what the life expectancy is on an asset. That's our policy.
Okay. So in the report, it's 30 plus years on a fabric structure and 20 years for a dome structure. Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'm happy to support this motion, primarily because we need to just get on this. And whether it's a dome or a fabric structure, I have no preference, whichever works out better. Honestly, the fabric structure right now feels like it's coming at the 11th hour, and perhaps that's okay. Maybe that is the better answer. But moving forward and getting something built is I think what we're here for. We need to get something on some land so that these kids can play and our seniors can walk and people can move forward with the quality of life that they want in this city. So I will support this motion, and I'm hopeful that we can get this information fairly quickly. I don't feel there's enough in here at this point in time for me to pick and choose whether dome or fabric, but cities like Ottawa and Edmonton have domes. I'm sure there's research done, and countless other cities. And then again, with the fabric saying the same thing. So I don't suspect it will take a long time to figure out pros and cons, because we're not reinventing the wheel here. I just like to get something in motion for the near future.
Just before I go to others in the queue, just a little bit of, if you would allow me, Councillor Platt, a little bit of cleanup on your motion as it is in the e-scribe. I would suggest that we prepare an RFX for both 135,000 square foot dome structure and fabric structure with, that is not coming back to council, that is not, and so the results of that RFX will come back to council. Okay? Just so everyone's clear on that. Councillor Blackmore.
One of the other questions I have regarding the 135,000 square feet is that what is the legal requirement for a soccer field? Because I think that the dome at that size is because you lose space along the edges. I'm not sure if that's right or not, but it is possible that we can build a slightly smaller building with a different structure.
Ms. Casually, can you refresh council's memory on the size options in regards to dome structures and potentially fabric structures, please?
Thank you, through the chair. Essentially, the 135,000 square feet facility was recommended to accommodate a FIFA size soccer pitch. So the height
Still be the same.
Through the chair, yes. If you were looking for a turf facility at that size, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you. I just think it's important for the record, make it clear that this fabric covered structure isn't a last minute 11th hour thing. It is something when the motion on April 17th, 2023 to explore a dome was made, I raised then the idea of a fabric structure. And the city manager at the time did clearly say that that administration would explore other options. I did at the time suggest I'd like to make a motion to that effect, and I was asked by the chair, well, we heard from the city manager that this will be explored. And I was quite satisfied with that answer, and my understanding is that's actually why this is appearing in the report. We're getting some information about that. So I just want to clear the record that this isn't a last minute, we're bringing up this idea.
All right. Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. Just taking a little bit of time and searching fabric structures. I recall actually the Denver airport, which is a major airport. Its entire ceiling is fabric and architecturally beautiful. And then also just searching around too, there's a number of great spans and architectural features that aren't just a bubble. So I actually look forward to seeing what options come forward for the fabric and steel structure. So because I think, again, one of my concerns was snow and wind, and if the Denver airport has had their roof for 20 plus years already and looks great, it's actually an exciting option for me. So I look forward to seeing it.
Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. One of the things, having watched soccer for the past almost 40 years, I think height is a very important factor, and I like the idea of going to the steel frame and fabric, as long as the soccer requirements, you're not hitting lights and doing stuff with it, and the dome it's 80 feet. So my question to Ms. Casually, what is the size? Because that will affect the price on the steel and fabric question.
Well, the size in the motion is 135,000 square feet. Do you mean the height?
The height.
Okay. Ms. Casually.
Through the chair, I'm not sure that I have that information at my fingertips, but if you could give me a minute, I will certainly check.
Okay. All right. So
Thank you. And while
sorry, go ahead, Councillor O'Connor.
Yeah, I really like that we stated 135,000 square feet and on the FIFA side, because then it allows us to put a lot of other small, I think they can put 4 different smaller soccer pitches inside this one side in our previous presentations. So I'd like us to stay at that 135. And a perfect example of that is when they build the bows, they didn't allow for expansion. They only went with the smallest footprint. And I think we paid the price for that for the last 40-some years. So I really think it's important that we look at staying at the larger size. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Plott.
Is there anybody else in the queue, or is this to close?
No, it is to close, but I will wait for Ms. Casually to get Councillor O'Connor's information. Mr. Burke.
Just so that we're clarity and just here reading the motion, is the intent for administration to proceed with an RFX?
Well, it says prepare.
Prepare. Just want to make sure that we're going to issue it just for absolute certainty here.
There wasn't discussion otherwise. Was that your intent?
No.
Okay, thanks. Ms. Casually, whenever, if you're ready, or I can come back to something else.
Thank you. Through the mayor, I don't actually have the specific measurements for that facility. It was just based on general price range for 135,000 square feet, but that is certainly something that could be achieved through the RFX process.
Okay, so I see no one else. Councillor Plott, sorry, Mr. Burke.
Yeah, and I think what the intent would be that we would any design specifications would comply with a FIFA soccer pitch. Was that the intent? I think that was the intent of the question, that whatever facility we built would be high enough to allow for soccer. We can ensure that's part of the RFX.
It's Councillor Plott's motion, so I'll ask you.
That would be my intent, and I think it would also fit a rugby game as well at that same size.
Ms. Casually?
Through the chair, administration would anticipate developing a scope of work similar to that was done for the activity and reception center build, where we included the type and variety of activities that would be performed in the space to ensure that the design specs met those needs.
Before you close, Councillor Plott, I have Councillor Bressie.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really worried about where this about if this motion passes, what happens next, and just I'm confused about what this RFX process is going to be. I heard from administration they still need to flesh out what it looks like, and there's just from for me, I think what counts, and I could be wrong, but I think what council's hoping for, and what I heard my colleagues say is, we kind of want to know high-level costs of both of these. We want plans for these, which is very different than go out and design a building for us. And I just think this motion might be setting into motion more than we actually want set in, depending on how it gets interpreted. And I also worry that once we start down the road of actually asking for an RFX, it becomes very hard to potentially put in things that we might want and we haven't had opportunity to discuss yet. So, for example, I would like to see us put in curtains in this facility so that if we've got a FIFA-sized field, you can also easily split it up. Well, that's got structural implications that might not be possible by the time it gets designed if we haven't said that from up front. So I'm hesitant about this motion, but I also do want to move the football down the field. And yeah.
Mr. Burke.
Well, I think that's to my question about prepare and proceed. If there is, if that sense that there would be some check-in once we have drafted the scope of work, I think that I don't think that would delay this process at all, and be comfortable to come back with the scope of work in what we had planned to send out in an RFX. And I think this motion would comply with that if that's the will.
Well, that's to my question earlier. Are the results coming back, or are you bringing the RFX back?
From the previous check-in, it was that we were going to proceed with an RFX and bring back the results. If there's an appetite to have a check-in on the scope, that would be welcome information here now.
All right. I'll open the conversation on whether or not you want input on the RFX. Councillor Bosch.
So let's say come for review.
Thank you. I guess for me, I'm still at the point where we haven't fully decided dome or fabric.
That's why they're both coming back.
That this information is essential still, and we don't have that, whether it's curtains or the cost of putting it up. So I'd like it to come back so that we can make a final decision. And again, I don't think this is rocket science. It's been done over and over in many communities. So I'd like to see it come back.
Councillor Bressie.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'd like to see it come back, and I'd love to see it. And if it's not taken as a friendly amendment, I'd be willing to move the amendment. But I'd love to see the word results in this motion change to, and that the scope of work of the RFX come back to council for review.
Okay, so I'll ask the mover of the motion if you are willing to take the friendly amendment to change the word results to scope of work of the RFX. Will come back to council for review.
I'm not as worried about the wording, but I'm confused why we don't think it's coming. It says right in the thing that it's going to come back to council for review. So I'm concerned of why we're...
Because it says results. So it would be after the RFX goes out, people bid or present on the RFX, whatever that format is, and then council would be making decision on the results of the RFX. Whereas the conversation is now, do you want input before the RFX goes out to tender, to public?
Sorry, so how it's worded now is what Councillor Bressie wants it as an amendment?
No, he would say that it would be the scope of work of the RFX will come back for review, and then the RFX will go out.
I'm completely fine with this. Sorry, Councillor Bressie, I don't want a friendly amendment because I don't think we need to get in the weeds about curtains and bleachers and lines and whether there's music playing or not. I think those are things, let's get the design of the structure costed. Those can be add-ons. We've also heard from Swan City FC and the other user groups that they'd probably put money into the facility. So I do think getting the structure designed first and getting it back RFX, I guess, in this scenario, gives us an ability to start having that conversation as a council about extra things. So no, I wouldn't be friendly. I mean, I like the wording how it is now.
Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Personally, I don't need to see the RFX before it goes out. And, we don't, we're not design experts around this horseshoe, and we need to rely on other people to be that. I don't think we need to put up any more roadblocks than we already have. Certainly, I know, because I trust our administration, that if something arises where they feel they need to check in with us, they'll check in with us. And I'm okay with that. The way the motion is currently written, let's move things ahead and trust that the process will work.
I'm just going to jump in as well. Sorry, are you on this, or are you in the queue for your subsequent motion? Okay, leave your subsequent motion out of it. Ask your question, because I have some comments on the motion as worded.
Yeah, and I'm still just so confused. So it sounds like what a couple of my colleagues are hoping to come back with is Administration X. We run an RFX and we actually get a design for 2 separate facilities built, and those designs are coming to council. Is how I would interpret this motion as currently worded right now. And it's a lot of money to design a building. We're asking for a lot of money to be spent on 2 different designs. Is how I would interpret this motion. So that's why I'm saying it. And now, judging by the look on my colleague's face, I think my colleague who's made this is interpreting differently than me. So that's why I'm saying I think we need to have more conversation about the scope of work of this RFX before it goes to market, it's completed, and it comes forward to us. I don't think anybody around this table has the same understanding of what exactly we're asking for.
So that's why I think that the city manager is asking these questions, but I also believe that through procurement and Ms. Cajolet and Mr. Burke, that conversations will be had in regards to what form of RFX it will be. If it's a request for information, then it'll be coming back with information on what's possible in each type of facility. Right, Mr. Burke?
Again, that's why we asked for the RFX, so that we could go do some of that work. We had envisioned that we had enough direction here for sort of some of the uses that would be baked in. If there were some specific add-ons, those would impact the costs. I think we have a pretty good understanding what the user groups would require to operate these or to utilize these facilities. I think we understand what we do with this motion. If there was some specific requests, we'd either take that as a subsequent motion or the alternative process to check in. Okay. But I haven't heard any other specific things that would be out of the normal for use by user groups to this point.
Okay, and that's what my preference is, a request for information, so that when you get those, the packages back, you can check option A with a plus this, and council can go ahead and say, now tell me the total price. So not a request for proposal where we have to pick one over the other, a request for information but we'll leave that up to the procurement people. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I guess maybe I'm a little bit confused, Councillor. Have we not already done an RFQ or RFI at some point to get to the dome scenario that we talked about? Like we had high-level costing already done on that, so... No, I appreciate not the fabric, but we've already got a concept and a design on the dome done that we've had it costed out.
Ms. Cajolet.
Thank you. Through the chair, no, there hasn't been a formal or competitive bid process. This information gathered to date has been working with suppliers.
So my question on the suppliers then is, as one, and maybe I'm assuming too much on this, but when we had the first one come back, it seemed like it was, here's option A size dome, here's option B size dome, here's option C size dome. So are we not building something that's already just being built at 135,000 square feet? I feel like that's the size of dome that's being built around the province. So I don't know how much design. I guess my question is there design on our part, or is it, hey, we're asking 2 different companies to come back with a quote on a design they already have and they've already been building around the province?
Ms. Cajolet.
Thank you. Through the chair. So the initial concept that was presented and different sizes, potential costing initially was provided by Swan City Football Club. So they had, as the user group, independently worked with a supplier and received some detailed costing information. Administration has worked with additional suppliers to gather information in terms of doing research to present options to council. Certainly, if a competitive bid process would allow for some of the specifics to be determined. So if, dividing the court, that sort of thing. If there was a different type of structure to be considered, one option, I would certainly defer to the procurement specialists, but one option could be that we certainly just develop the scope of work to say, this is the size that we're looking for, this is the type of activities that we envision, and just put it out to all types of vendors, and then they could come back with different proposals.
Okay, so just, if I can, question maybe for the city manager on that is, with the motion today, you go away, is there any cost to the city other than the admin cost of running an RFX at all?
Mr. Burke?
Not based on this motion. This would be on the proponents, which was one of the reasons why narrowing the scope was useful. If there were some options that were just out of our price range, I would hate to have proponents spending money on doing a submission. So this was useful.
Okay, thank you.
Before you close, I have Councillor O'Toole.
Yeah, I think I'm in favor of what's on the table now. Most of these suppliers will have a sample that they could copy and paste, throw in a few ideas of themselves, and I think it'll be quicker than most people will think. It's the value of the dollar compared to the American dollar. It's the price of materials, but the actual structure itself is pretty mainframe, and I feel that the information that we're giving them today is adequate for them professionals to come up with a relatively very close bid.
I'm Councillor Bressy on this current motion. Okay, Councillor Bressy.
All right, so I think I got some clarity. So just be crystal clear. If this motion passes, administrations would run an RFX process and kind of let us know how that process went, but it wouldn't be awarding anything based on this motion.
Mr. Burke?
Correct.
Okay, then I'm comfortable with it as is. My next question might be a subsequent motion, or maybe it's including this, but also here, thanks for that clarity. So I heard council saying that they've got concerns and they want to know things like getting a final cost on what utilities are gonna cost. I heard talk from my colleagues around the table about, hey, we want to know what the shell of it costs, but that's very different than the shell plus the playing surface plus the toilets plus all of that. So is this being interpreted as we're just looking at the outer shell, or do we need another motion or change this motion to get those greater costs?
Mr. Burke.
So those would be outside the scope of this motion, and I guess that is one of the considerations why left it at our facts. If we were to, we might get a backup proposal for design build or something like that, where those costs would be incorporated into that. Okay. And some companies, no, they just want to provide the product. I just don't know enough about what we're going to do with the actual proposal to identify that. If we were to look at costing for the services, that would be an expense of the city. If it was outside this motion, that there would be costs associated with that. If you want to get to that precise level before we proceeded.
Great, thank you.
And just why there have been models where that would be the proponent would do all of that in one package. So depending on which direction council want to go, there is a couple different options here. If it is still to get precise servicing costs on that at the same time as this building cost, then that would be cost to the city.
Okay, Councillor Palat, would you like to close, or are you good?
I guess just after hearing that, I'm still, and Councillor Bressy's making me confused about it now as well. Does this building, with whatever it is, or what we've got in here as a motion, not include the outbuilding or any of that? Like, I guess my intent today is I'd like you guys to go figure out what this thing's going to cost, like we've talked about for last year, and come back with that as an option. If we need to make more motions about saying it needs to include an outbuilding, it needs to include a grass surface, then I'm happy to make those. But my intent today is when we leave here, we've given administration enough to come back with a cost so we can approve it, yes or no. And so I'm just wondering, does this motion capture that, or do we need to add more things to do that?
Mr. Burke.
This motion captures the costs of the building and the ancillary buildings, if it was dressing rooms, things like that. If we were to get to a precise level of design engineering for the services, that would be I'd suggest an additional motion, because there would be cost incurred.
But services won't be included. Will it include bleachers?
No, I'm talking about water, sanitary, electrical. That would be outside of the scope of a traditional RFI, if that's the direction, for site specific. This would really be focused on the building. So if there's a desire to identify those specific costs, then I would suggest there'd be a second motion, and we would go away and figure out what that would cost us. It would be an outlay of cash from the city at this point.
Yeah, and I Sure, let's do a subsequent motion for that. I did believe that Ms. Cajolet was going to bring back engineering and design, but if we will formalize that, because it was identified that she wasn't aware, but that she would get the information, but we can formalize that if you prefer.
I would, and it really goes to the degree of information. We can go get some high-level estimates based on other projects, but if hearing some of the comments here, there was a desire for more detailed numbers, then I'd suggest that's a separate motion, separate body of work.
Okay. Would you like to close, Councillor Plott? I'll call the question on the motion in your e-scribe. That carries unanimously. Councillor Bressy, are you prepared to make a subsequent motion?
Yeah, thank you. Definitely happy to have help on wording, but just get something on the floor. I'd move the council-directed administration to prepare a cost estimate to provide water, wastewater, and other necessary services to the preferred site for this facility.
Okay. I think that works. Councillor Plott.
Sorry, Mayor Clayton, I appreciate the motion. I'm just curious, do we need to talk about parking at this point, or is that going to be a third motion down the road? Or just would like to see a cost on this project and whole scope. So I'm just wondering if administration would like us to do that as a separate motion coming back once they've done an analysis of what they think they're going to need for additional parking, and do that as a motion later on. Appreciate the servicing has to happen, and we have to get this thing ready so it can flush your toilet and turn lights on. Just wondering if parking is a third motion, or we need further information.
Sorry, can I speak to that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd be happy to add parking as just a friendly amendment in here. Proposed parking. And I also did have the other necessary services, a catch-all in case we missed something, but happy to add parking specifically.
Councillor O'Toole. No,
Can I also get...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Can I also get lighting in the area too? Because that's all going to be part in when the parking goes in.
That's a traditional design standard in our parking lots, but it includes, I think the motion covers it because it includes all necessary services, if you're fine, but I can...
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that as long as everybody understands that we are asking for lighting in there as well.
Yep. Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, to that point, I want to make sure I'd like to see is the grass, the stands, and everything included inside, or is that still going to be another number that's coming back to us? And so I know that we can do a rough budget on a lot of those items, which it sounds like Ms. Cajolet has worked with the Swan City Soccer Club to look at costs. So I don't want to see us come back and say, oh, we didn't allow for this, and then our costs are going to balloon. So I want to make sure when we come back, it's all in, done.
Ms. Cajolet? What will specifically, everything required to facilitate multi-sport use on a grass turf will be incorporated in that RFX, correct?
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, the assumption would be that it would be a turf facility, and we would include those enhancements. If council has other desires, certainly now would be a great time to be aware of that.
So bleachers, change rooms, etc. Okay. Is that good, Councillor O'Connor?
Yeah, just I have heard a walking track as part of this. So is that part of the whole procedure?
I've never heard that, but if you want to have a discussion to try to add that, I'll come to you as a subsequent motion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing no one else in the queue, Councillor Bressy, would you like to close?
I'm okay. Thank you, Mayor Clayton.
Okay. Call the question on the motion. That carries unanimously. All right. No one else's subsequent motions? Seeing none, I'm going to move on. Item 8.3. There's a couple motions in your package, Council. As you recall, the appointments of board members to Aquatera is something that the shareholders endorse or not, and there are recommendations in your package. Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'd like to move Council authorize the mayor to vote in favor of endorsing the recommendations of the Aquatera board for the following appointments. Reappoint of Barb Felt, Mary Bulmer, and Andy Fraser for an additional 3-year term to the board, and 2, appointment of Tracy Allard as the new board chair for a term of 2 years. Thank you.
Perfect. That motion is in order, and as mentioned in the motion, it authorizes myself to vote in favor of these, as each shareholder has a representative vote. Seeing no one in the queue with questions, I'll call the question. And that's carried unanimously. Council, it is currently 5 o'clock. I will be leaving at 6 o'clock to prepare for the opening ceremonies for the National Aboriginal Hockey Championships. So as Councillor Thiessen is deputy and not here, I'll actually probably pass it over to Councillor Berg, who's the most recent deputy, to take over the meeting when I leave at 6 o'clock, if we are not completed by then, to chair the rest of the meeting. So moving on to committee business. The first item of business, the Public and Protective Services Committee meeting held April 30th. I will recognize Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton, and I am going to try and do it as quickly as possible in respect of time. I'd like to move Council adopt the minutes of the Public and Protective Services Committee meeting held April 30th as presented.
A motion is in order. Seeing no one in the queue with errors or omissions, please vote. And that carries unanimously. Councillor O'Connor, you had one item of business today.
Yes, I'd like to move that Council approve funding allocations as presented in Appendix A.
All right, so as with previous grant recommendations, this went through Standing Committee. It's now at Council to approve it or not. Seeing no one in the queue, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Just for those who are watching online, Councillor Palat has left the chambers, as well as Councillor Bressie. Councillor O'Connor, any highlights from your meeting?
Yes, very briefly. Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'd like to report that the RCMP, our warning has been issued regarding a new drug recently found in the city. It's a floral fentanyl with a it's hard to say this, bromazolone linked to a fatal death. So it's a concern. And then in sports development, sports tourism, the video has been launched during National Tourism Week, is now posted on the city website. And a centralized email has been developed to streamline bookings at city facilities for birthday parties, user groups, and meeting rooms. All CKC sites, reception centers, Aquatera outdoor pool, ball diamonds, and grass sports fields, ice and sports groups, making it easier to book your facility. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your highlights, Councillor O'Connor. Moving on to item 9.2, the Financial and Administration Committee meeting held April 30th. I'll look to Councillor Palat for introduction.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I just make a motion that Council adopt the minutes of the Financial and Administrative Services Committee meeting held April 30th as presented.
That motion is in order. Seeing no one in the queue, I'll call the question.
Thiessen in favor.
Bressie in favor.
And that carries unanimously. Councillor Palat, you had a couple items of business tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. Last week we discussed some bylaw amendments for the fees, rates, and charges, which were kind of triggered from a few new operational changes we've made with downtown. So I'd like to make a motion that council give first reading to bylaw C 1395N, being amendment to the fees, rates, and charges bylaw.
So no discussion or debate on first reading. I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I'd like to make a motion that council give second reading to bylaw C 395N or 1395N. And just to speak to a little bit now, we did make a subsequent motion last council meeting, and we are going to have more budget check-ins coming about specific fees and charges that could have tax impacts on our community. But this was a kind of a housekeeping item for now, from what I understood. So urge you to support it.
Thanks for that. The motion's in order. Opportunity for questions for administration. On second reading, seeing no one, I'll call the question. Please vote. And that carries unanimously. Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I'd move that council have third reading of bylaw C 1395N at this meeting.
Perfect. So this is a motion to be able to have third reading here tonight. It must pass unanimously. Opportunity for any discussion or debate. Seeing none, I'll call the question. Please vote. That too carries unanimously. Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. And I move that council have give third reading to bylaw C 1395N, being amendment to the fees, rates, and charges bylaw.
Rick, that motion is in order. Seeing no one in the queue, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Your second item of business, Councillor Platt.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. I just make a motion that council give first reading to bylaw C 1473, being the 2024 property tax bylaw.
Great. Thanks for that. That motion is in order. There is no discussion or debate on first reading, so I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Councillor Platt.
Yeah, and my next motion is for council to give second reading for bylaw C 1473.
Perfect. That motion's in order. Opportunity for discussion, debate, questions from administration. Recognizing Councillor Bressie.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'll be a note to this. I just can't support council's current direction on revenue strategy for how we're funding the level of service we're currently choosing to deliver. I was uncomfortable back at budget deliberations when we chose to draw $1 million out of reserves to fund ongoing operations, but after last council meeting, we're drawing a couple $1 million more out of either reserves or one-time funding sources. And to fund ongoing operations, I can't support that unless we're in a year that's exceptional, and I don't think this is an exceptional year. I think we're just in a time of new tight fiscal realities, and given that, we've got two choices to us. We need to either start reducing services and reducing now, or we need to tax appropriately to deliver the level of services that we are delivering. I think if this property tax bylaw passes as is, we're in for a lot of pain in the community next year, as we either have a very large increase in taxes that we didn't smooth out, or we drastically reduce services to keep up. I just can't support one-time funding and reserve draws for ongoing operations to the extent that this property tax bylaw requires.
All right. Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I will be supporting this motion, realizing that while we are drawing more money out of reserves and one-time funding currently, we also have had quite frank discussions with our city manager about the need to re-examine our service level in a variety of ways, and coming to this fall's budget. Those kinds of discussions are not something that can be handled rapidly. And this particular bylaw change is taking place because this council chose not to move forward with the stormwater utility, which means that we need to make an adjustment to our 2024 budget. As we head into budgets in the fall, looking at the 2025 budget, I will be absolutely looking to administration to bring forward recommendations to service levels and funding commitments. And so I'm happy with the motion as it is today, and I'm happy with moving forward with this particular tax change, but I will not be supporting anything other than a relatively low tax adjustment in the fall of 2024 either. So I fully expect our administration will come prepared to have those tough discussions, having had plenty of notice that they need to happen.
Just a question for administration. Thank you, Councillor Blackmore. A question for administration. The property tax increase at 3.97, how much of it is actually property tax increase? What is the rate of property tax increase minus the requisitions? I'll actually, it's kind of a facetious question. I'll ask you. Is the property tax increase actually 3.26? And then to get to 3.97 is money that we collect through two requisitions, one being Grand Spirit and one being education tax. Joining us at the table, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So the 3.97 is the overall municipal levy. Once we factor in the education requisition, that will bring the residential increase down to that 3.26.
Okay. So I will support this motion. I echo Councillor Blackmore's comments. Administration and our CAO have full understanding of Council's expectation as we go into budget deliberations this fall, and realistically, this 3.26 increase, although we're disappointed to see an increase, is realistically a small increase comparative across the province. We know that the cumulative increase of costs of goods, of rate of inflation, exceeds 15% cumulatively. And so over the past few years, and our council in the past few years has a comparative increase to taxes that is not representative of other municipalities. We've done a significant amount of work to keep our taxes in check. Administration has been very strong in the work that they've done and provided to council for direction. And 3.26, although it is an increase overall, and I appreciate Councillor Bressy's comments in regards to taking from one-time funding and reserves, is not somewhere that we want to do on a continual basis, because you will run those reserves dry. The point being is right now we need to recoup money that isn't going to be recuperated in a stormwater utility. So 3.26 is something that I think is $129 a year for residents, and is something that, although it could be a burden on some people, $129 a year is significantly less than it could be in comparison to other mid-sized cities. So I will support the motion. I recognize Councillor O'Toole.
Yeah, I don't like seeing the taxes go up either, but you know what? I fully support this from what the citizens have gone through. The costs of goods have gone up, the cost of fuel have gone up. I think administration, the staff have done a very fine job of getting it to this low of number, and that I appreciate. Thank you.
See no one else in the queue, I'll call the question on second reading. Thank you, Mr. Smith. And that carries unanimously. Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I would make a motion that council have third reading of Bylaw C-1473 at this meeting.
Perfect. That motion is in order, and in order for us to have third reading here tonight, this must pass unanimously. Seeing no one in the queue, I'll call the question. That carries unanimously. I apologize, Councillor O'Toole. Did I miss your hand up, or is that from previous?
No, that must have been from previous.
Okay. Councillor Platt.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton, and thanks, council, for having third reading. Allowing to have a third reading. So I'll make a motion that council give third reading to Bylaw C-1473, being the 2024 property tax bylaw.
All right. That motion is in order, and I see no one in the queue, so I'll call the question. carries 8-1. Moving on to, highlights from your meeting, Councillor Platt.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. We covered most of the business arising. We did have some service area updates from Chief Whiteway. The tax notices are expected to be mailed out by May long weekend, and they are due June 28th this year, as June 30th falls on a Sunday. Procurement, there are currently 8 bids on the market, with 5 more scheduled for release this week, and the spring bike auction of 101 bikes will run from May 2nd until May 16th. That's my report.
Thanks for your update. Appreciate that. Moving on to item 9.3, the Operational Services Committee meeting held April 30th. I'll look to Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I would move that Council adopt the minutes of the Operational Services Committee held Tuesday, April 30th, 2024, as presented.
Thank you for that. That motion is in order. Seeing no one in the queue, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Councillor Thiessen, you had a couple items of business tonight.
I certainly do. A couple items of businesses indeed. First one is the 3 readings on a special recreational services tax levy in Pinnacle Ridge. And with that, I would move that Council give first reading to Bylaw C-1472, being the special recreational services tax bylaw. Now, speaking to this motion, this is a special bylaw that's specifically geared towards the Pinnacle Ridge area in regards to the fountain that is at one of the front entrances. Years ago, when the city was embarking on potentially tearing it down, once we took ownership over it and parts had fallen apart, there was resounding pushback from the neighborhood that they wanted to keep this special fountain there, which actually does a lot more than aesthetics. It helps to ensure that there's no algae growth, mosquito blooms, and other stuff like that. And besides being beautiful and being a nice place for wedding photography and stuff like that. This is a typical run-of-the-mill. We pass this every year. In previous years, I believe it cost about $20. This year, due to lower costs and a bit of a higher reserve to replace parts on it, it's only going to cost the residents there $12.50. So I would encourage Council, as this is fairly standard, to approve this motion. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Thiessen. So this is a motion for second reading, right? We're on second reading? Am I correct? Okay. So any questions for administration or discussion or debate? Oh, that was first reading. I apologize. So no discussion or debate on first reading. Thanks for your introduction, Councillor Thiessen. Please vote. That carries unanimously. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would move that Council give second reading to Bylaw C-1472.
Perfect. Thank you for that. So an opportunity for questions for administration, discussion or debate. Seeing none, I'll call the questions. Please vote. That carries unanimously. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would move that we have third reading at this meeting.
Perfect. In order for us to have third reading here tonight, this must carry unanimously. Seeing no one in the queue, I'll call the question. And it carries unanimously. Councillor Thiessen.
All right, last one for the show. I'd move that Council give third reading to Bylaw C-1472, being the Special Recreation Services Tax Bylaw.
Thank you for that. That motion is in order. Call the question. And that carries unanimously. Councillor Thiessen, moving on to item 9.3.2, Service Club Signage.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I would move that Council direct administration to proceed with the redesign and reinstallation of 3 service club signs at the new city boundaries, with funding to come from the Transportation Department's operating budget. Just speaking to this, I was going to say that we can absorb these costs and it's fairly minimal, but as far as the report that was given to Council, these signs on average would cost about $1,500 per sign to refurbish, which is a relatively good deal in my opinion for a total of $4,500 totally within their sign budget. Now, this came about, just speaking to the motion, when we had Service Club members, I believe from the Legion, come forward and talk to council at committee meeting asking for us to consider refurbishing these signs. We tasked administration to look into that. And after administration looked into it, as the motion states, they found that they could do it within their operational budget, no extra expenses, and to do a service for these service clubs by advertising them at our city boundaries. So for all those reasons, I hope that council will support this. Thank you.
Perfect. That motion is in order. Recognizing Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I have a question for administration. I know in many communities, it's the service clubs themselves that pay to rent their space on the sign. I'm wondering, this motion seems to indicate otherwise. Is this the case here where their Rotary Club, for example, would rent their spot on the sign? Or are we, in fact, covering the costs entirely?
Chief Glavin?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. In this case, we would be covering costs entirely.
In that case, I don't feel comfortable supporting this motion. While it is a small cost today, this is a cost that has ongoing operational implications, and I feel that it's up to the service organizations, if they want their name on the sign, to put some skin in the game. And so for this reason, I will not support the motion.
Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. And actually, I will support this, as I mentioned in committee. I find there is value in it. I'm not a big signs guy, but I find it welcoming that when you're part of different organizations from different communities and you drive into town, you look at those and you see that there is a connection, because different groups that I've been involved with are on signs, and I know, okay, this is a welcoming community to me. So there's a familiarity. And these organizations do a lot for the community, and I feel it's a relatively small investment as somewhat of a thank you from the city as well to do this. Now, some of the options were full redesigns that would have cost tens of thousands of dollars. I wasn't in favor of that. But for the minimal amount that these signs will cost, they're not unattractive. I think there is value in it, so I will be supporting it.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Berg. Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I will support this motion. I wish that while I was listening to the committee meeting and not part of the committee, I wish there would be a little bit of extra thought and effort put into adding certain other organizations that are deemed as important as the ones that are going up there now. So although I will be supporting this, I'm hopeful that administration will look at that. Perhaps they could, increase the size, for the few that weren't included that are equally important.
Thanks for your comments. I see no one else in the queue. Councillor Thiessen, did you wish to close? Okay, call the question. And that carries 7-2. Councillor Thiessen, any highlights from your meeting?
Well, pretty much the business was the highlights, but just to let everybody know that operational services is running clear and smooth. Our seasonal staff has been hired, street sweeping rounds done. Now we're working on dust abatement and control. We put out the tenders for arterial roads, sidewalks, and other programs out there. And wait, let me just take a look at my notes here. Oh, yeah, and facilities is working on prepping up all of our outdoor facilities, such as the Aquatera Fun Park swim pool and other outdoor amenities to be ready for people to entertain themselves and their family over the summer. And that is all. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that, Councillor Thiessen. Moving on to the Invest GP committee meeting held April 30th. And I will look to Councillor Blackmore for introduction.
I would move that Council adopt the minutes of the Invest GP committee meeting held April 30th as presented.
Perfect. That motion is in order. So I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Any highlights from your meeting, Councillor Blackmore?
Yes, I have a few. Economic development has, for the month of April, 13 commercial and 10 home-based businesses who've taken out business licenses. So those are new to the community. Employer applications previously that qualified under the Rural Renewal Stream program are being reviewed to meet new provincial regulatory requirements. In the last 2 weeks, there were 9 employer applications and 18 endorsement letters. Administration attended the Canadian Hydrogen Convention, which was last week, connecting with industry and business leaders and startup companies to discuss local potential for the development of hydrogen in the region. The city also had a booth at the Chamber Spring Trade Show at the Jackpot Grill and connected with businesses sharing information about our program and supports. That trade show was, as always, very busy and fully subscribed. Administration joined Northwestern Polytechnic at their announcement on April 26 regarding the Rural Medical Education Training Program that will be built next to the hospital and will be facilitating physician training in our community, starting with intake in 2025. And that is very exciting for the community. Under investment attraction, the city will have a booth at the Peace Region Energy Show May 15th to 16th, so look for us there. This event is important in bringing together oil and gas companies, retailers, and enabling sectors in the region to build connections and strengthen our energy sector. Under events and entertainment, the box office has acquired a couple of new ticketing contracts. Hythe Motor Speedway has 4 weekends where they'll be selling tickets through our box office, and the Grande Prairie Regional Air Show will be selling their tickets through the box office. Upcoming events include the Grande Prairie Composite High School graduation, which will be held on May 17th, Mini Pops Kids on May 24th, Dinosaur World Live on May 26th, Stompede Bust Out on May 28th, Rainbow Bright Teen Dance May 31st, Party in White on June 1st, the Queen Tribute on June 3rd, John Paul High School and St. Joseph High School graduation on June 6th and 7th, respectively, and the Grand Gathering Gala is scheduled for June 15th. Finally, Charles Spencer graduation will be held June 26th, and we all look forward to Canada Day celebrations on July 1st. Thanks, Mayor Clayton.
Perfect. Thanks for your update, Councillor Blackmore. Moving on to item 9.5, the Strategy and Communication Services Committee meeting held April 30th. I'll look to Councillor O'Toole for introduction.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I move that Council adopt the minutes of the Strategy and Communication Services Committee meeting held April 30th as presented.
Perfect. That motion is in order. Seeing no one in the queue, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Councillor O'Toole, any highlights for your meeting?
Yes, Chief of Staff presented the committee an update on the projected activities planned throughout the service area. Executive Service and Strategy Administration has been busy arranging school visits to City Hall. The City Clerk has started the census enumerators will be canvassing the city to place individual pin door knockers on every residential dwelling across the city over the next week. And residents can use their unique PIN to complete the 2024 municipal census online. Corporate communications work continues on the residential satisfaction survey, which is expected to go live on May 13th. We got some more here. Intergovernmental affairs. The province recently introduced new legislation, and administration is researching to discover the impacts this will have on our city. And corporate marketing, thanks to the collaboration between several city departments, administration saved over $13,000 in printing for the National Aboriginal Hockey Championships rink boards. Census marketing has begun, including the production of door hangers and unique PIN codes. Residents will fill out the census within published timelines and will be entered into win a grocery gift cards, which is great. And the city hosted a booth at the Spring Home and Garden Show, showcasing several events and departments, and the city co-hosted Earth Day event with the county on April 20th, and this event had a high attendance at that particular date. And other than that, that's my report, and thank you very much, and hopefully you can get time to watch the hockey tonight.
All right. Thanks for your update, Councillor O'Toole. Moving on, there is no correspondence this evening, no notices of motion. Moving to unfinished business, public engagement policy, and I'll look to Chief McEachran for introduction.
Thank you, Mayor. So this item is a new policy replacing our previously, I would say, dated policy on public engagement. It outlines the policy and process or procedure for engaging with public members on items that have been outlined by council and administration as important for to receive input in from the public. I will note that since it was presented to committee, if you note, items 5.8 and 5.9 have been slightly adjusted based on feedback from council. And with that, Director Cooper is here if there's any further information required from council.
All right, thanks for that. Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton, and thanks for administration for the couple changes on the things we discussed last time. I didn't ask this last time, but as I read through this again, I'm just a question for administration on this. Under our promise to public, it says we'll implement what you decide, and I'm wondering if that's should be a concern of thinking we've made decisions in the past that we didn't necessarily have unanimous support on, and we went ahead and implemented them. Am I reading that, overthinking this maybe a little bit when it says empower, that it says we'll implement what you decide?
Mr. Cooper.
So through the chair, when you have an empowerment form of engagement, the promise to the public is, yes, we would implement what has been decided. So the mechanisms by which that might occur could be a referendum, plebiscite, things of that nature. Election.
Okay, so it's not just on a one-off. We're going to.
No, it's not a wide sweeping statement. It's specific to empowerment, which, as I've indicated previously, is a pretty rare occurrence.
Oh, that's fine. I just want a clarification. Thank you.
Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Clayton. And I actually just wanted to thank you for clarifying that, because I had the same question when it was presented to us before. So I wanted to thank you for reformatting it, because I think it does clear up a lot of the misconceptions that I had, which are similar to what Wade just mentioned. So I appreciate the new format, the new look. It reads better and less confusing. So that's a public-facing document, and the public will be reading this. And so I just wanted as few questions as possible. So thank you.
All right. Anyone else with questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none. I will need business arising. Councillor Bressie.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would move that Council approve policy 128 being the public engagement policy.
Perfect. That motion is in order. Opportunity for discussion or debate. Seeing none, I'll call the question.
Bressie in favor.
Palat in favor.
Councillor Bosch.
Just waiting. Oh, there it is.
That carries unanimously. Second item of business, Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would move that Councillor Sin Policy 118 being the citizen engagement policy and just speak to these. Thank you to staff for the work that went into thoughtfully thinking through how to improve this process and also to explain it to council and the public. I've seen huge improvements in this area as during my time on council, but I also expect us to keep on improving. I think we're on that course. So thank you to staff for all the work that went into this.
Perfect. Thanks for that. I'll call the question, or an opportunity for discussion or debate. Seeing no one in the queue, I'll call the question. Please vote.
Applaud in favor.
And that carries unanimously. So we will not be having a recess tonight. There were no delegations, no public hearings, and therefore no delegation business. I'll move to council member reports. I'm going to start online. Councillor Thiessen.
Oh, I thought you were going to call it Councillor O'Connor because he's the first box on my left. But thank you, Mayor Clayton. I appreciate it. Just a quick rundown. It's been a fairly busy couple of weeks. I guess that goes to the territory of being deputy mayor. Both personal, professional, and council business all rolled into one made me a very busy boy. Just to start with my external committees, Grande Prairie Foundation, we had a board meeting on April 26th to discuss some of the business that we had. A few policies were tweaked, a review of the services that we provide, including the food service, as well as settling on a name for United Shareholders Agreement after going through the registry's name check. So we did settle on something, and we're just waiting for our partners to get back to us if they agree. I don't think it's a big deal. It's not going to hold anything up, and hopefully we'll be building buildings here pretty soon. Speaking to that meeting, though, there was a special presentation at that Grande Prairie Foundation meeting from the Rycroft Agricultural Society, who had come forward and asked if they could do their annual fundraiser on behalf of Grande Prairie Foundation for this year, which we happily obliged for. And as we started engaging with them for planning and other stuff like that, I think we had the big idea that at the end, hey, this is going to be a real good thing for Grande Prairie because any fundraiser is a good fundraiser. And with the naming rights for the buildings of the Pleasant View Lodge, where all the proceeds of this fundraiser would go to, we thought, well, hey, maybe we can get at least $50,000, potentially, if we're lucky, up to $100,000 to help take care of the furnishings and all the extra accessories that go with building a lodge in a community. And so Rycroft came forward. They talked a bit about the event, the types of people who are spending money, which apparently was all the young Spirit River and Rycroft crew, which is good to hear that the under 30-somethings were spending their money on the seniors, which is what I like to see, ideally. At the end of the day, though, they informed us that they were able to raise about $450,000 for the Pleasant View Lodge. So we were quite overwhelmed because we knew the numbers were good. They actually oversold out, which is great. They had planned for 500 and had a little under 600 show up. People were spending the money, and you know what? They came out in big droves. So Pleasant View Lodge is going to be well stocked when we cut the ribbon on that building here in June coming up. So really excited, and a big thank you to all the hardworking men and women and volunteers that helped make that event such a success. And thank you so much for all the generous donations that were received throughout the night. It was quite overwhelming and a very happy moment for our board. And lots of hugs after, of course, obviously from me. Just to whiz through the rest of everything else, I did a few ribbon cuttings on behalf of the city of Grande Prairie. We did the Build relaunch, as well as the KOA campgrounds, formerly known as Camp Tamarack. Councillor O'Connor joined me for that ribbon cutting, and most of council was there for the Build relaunch. I also went to a few chamber events. I had the opportunity to talk with a bunch of Ukrainian immigrants who were learning English as a second language, and I'll probably have some conversations with some council members, maybe Councillor Bressie, when I come back, because they were really shocked that we collect property taxes here in Canada and in Grande Prairie, because that's just not something that their municipal government does in Ukraine. So when I asked them how that works, they said that the municipal government is largely controlled by the province, which may be where we could head if nothing changes on Bill 20, maybe 20 years down the road. But let's not go there yet, because I hear they're making amendments. We also did the Youth Week kickoff at Kickstand at the brand new young youth emergency shelter, and I have to say, council got a good tour of that facility, and it is comparison. We're talking like 4 football fields of yardage, like as far as how much better of a space this was from the space that they had before, and the space that they had before was good, but this is a dream space, especially for kids that are looking to find their feet, meet like-minded individuals, perhaps go back to school, and all that other stuff, especially when they're facing homelessness. So a very awesome building. We got a tour of the artwork and other stuff there. I'm sure other members of the council talk, so I won't belabor it. I also did a couple walks here before I came here to Calgary. Over the weekend, the Steps for Life walk, which was done about a week after the day of mourning that we had here, that I was with Mayor Clayton with, as well as the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's Walk, whose attendance was growing. And part of that had to do with the Aboriginal Hockey Championships that are happening in our community. We're really happy that those athletes came out and took time out of their day to engage and raise awareness for such a very important topic. The mayor gave great greetings as usual. I wore a blue shirt. Normally I'm color coordinated. The mayor did her job. She wore the red. I wore my buffalo hide and my Hug a Sister shirt, and engaged in lots of good conversations in the walk. So hopefully it just keeps growing from here. We raise awareness, and no family ever has to endure the loss of a loved one, a woman, child, two-spirit, or otherwise ever again. So let's raise awareness. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I attended the Urban Forestry Strategy Workshop. I also had a meeting on the Grande Prairie Police Service. We had a touch point with the Chief of Police. And where else were we at here? I attended the Build GP relaunch. There's lots of stuff going on. Let me just look. Youth Week, we did the Sunrise Tour. I think most of council was there. And as well, I attended the AAPG, which is the Alberta Association of Police Governance. And then I'm now here in Calgary, and I am at the ACCPA in Calgary, which is a safety and conference as well. And we had a great speaker today that I'm very impressed with, top quality. Anyhow, that's my short little report. And thank you very much for that opportunity.
Thanks for that, Councillor O'Toole. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you. Saving the best for last. Okay.
Actually, not. Oh, really? Well, one of you in this room is the best, apparently, according to Councillor O'Connor. But go ahead, Councillor O'Connor.
Oh, dear. Anyway, the intermunicipal plan update. Did another school tour with Councillor Thiessen. Intermunicipal meeting town of Sexsmith. That went great. Urban forestry workshop. Chamber ribbon cutting at TPKOA Journey, formerly Camp Tamarack, RV Park. Ribbon cutting at Bill GP, Chamber of Commerce Business Showcase Week, announcement of rural medical education at Northwest Polytech, awesome news, and Musqueam, go Musqueam, and Arbor Day hunted out trees to grade 1 students and told them about the city's urban renewal program. So, forestry program, sorry. And then attended a virtual intermunicipal workshop on lawlessness put on by the Mid-Cities, put on by Lethbridge, and that was a great event. I went to the Steps for Life walk and at the crime prevention workshop, and that's my report, Mayor Clayton.
Thanks so much, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you, Mayor Clayton. I got to attend the Alberta Association of Police Governance along with some police commission members and Councillor O'Toole and that lawlessness workshop in person that Lethbridge put on, and it was really encouraging to be with other mid-sized cities and hear that we're not facing problems that are unique to Grande Prairie. They really are being faced across the province, so it was great to get some ideas, but it's also fun to see we're a couple years ahead of most of our peers too, and so it was really encouraging that way. Most of my time the last week or so has been spent with Alberta municipalities. I had an audit finance committee meeting. I also had a board meeting, and during that board meeting, we got to do an embargo technical briefing on Bill 20, along with representatives from RMA, the Clerks Association, and the Administrative Professionals Association. And to say everybody was floored in that briefing was an understatement. It was, we knew political parties were likely coming to the big cities, but the scope of changes and how they fundamentally do change what it means to be a municipal governor was quite shocking. So it's been a week of advocacy, a week of picking up the phone calls from our members as we're figuring out how to best provide input on apparent incoming amendments on this bill. So that's where a lot of my time's been the last week.
Thanks for that. Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'll just speak quickly. And a lot of our councillors were at this too, or many of these, the intermunicipal meeting in Sexsmith. So that was really nice to have everybody around the table. And we had some great presentations from GPREP and Aquatera in regards to what our spring season may look like and into our summer. The urban forestry workshop was good to attend. The Chamber Business Showcase at the Jackpot was really nice to see. So many people attend these showcases and show our local businesses some love. I attended the Masco Medical Rural Medical Education Program Training Center announcement. That was great, and happy to see that moving forward. And then Mayor Clayton and myself attended the pipe ceremony yesterday for the National Aboriginal Hockey Championships. So that was really nice too. That's my report.
Thanks for that. Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. I'm just going to touch on three things that haven't been mentioned yet. I did get to the Art Gallery of Grande Prairie opening. It's a show for the independent study students at Northwestern Polytechnic. An exceptional show. I go every year, and I think this was the most impressive year. I think there's a couple of artists in there that have some really high-end potential, and I look forward to following their careers. Grande Prairie Regional Tourism Association, we had a meeting. We are still doing interviews for executive director, but things are working just fine at Center 2000. We've got an executive that's committed, and they're filling the gaps along with the staff at Center 2000 and GP Regional Tourism. So no service level interruptions while we search for an executive director, but again, compliments to those that are pulling some extra weight. And then finally, I had the honor of giving greetings at the Thunderbird Traditional Teaching, Land-Based Teaching. That is an annual conference here in Grande Prairie, and it attracts people from coast to coast. They literally had people from Vancouver Island to Nova Scotia attending. Over 200 people come in for this event. It is an annual event held this time each year. So Again, between the two jobs, I wasn't able to attend as much as I wanted to, but what I was witness to was amazing and uplifting. So congratulations to Amanda and Leonard for another job well done. And that is my report, Mayor.
Thanks for that, Councillor Berg. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Attended some of the other items that are already mentioned. I'll just mention a couple that haven't been. Attended a Bear Creek corridor study that was done by our city administration. I want to thank them for that. Had some great maps up on the wall, and lots of staff was there if you did have questions, so I thought they did a great job with that. Also, Councillor Bressy and Mayor Clayton and myself had a fairly lengthy day last week with our recreation and culture meeting with our county colleagues. So I also want to thank Reeve Marshall, Councillors Wilpray and Councillor Krennick. They're long days, but we had some great conversation, and I appreciate them sitting at the table with us all day. And lastly, just attended the Mascoma Mixer, and I only want to mention that because I'm excited about that project. I know it's been mentioned already, but I'm super excited about that project and what it could do for our region. Thanks, Mayor Clayton.
Thanks for that, Councillor Plott. Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I attended almost all of the events that have already been listed, and so I want to talk about two things specifically. On Saturday, I attended the annual general meeting for South Peace Regional Archives. At that meeting, the bylaws were changed, and the result of the change in the bylaw makes political appointments, such as myself, non-voting. This allows their board to not be forced to grow. If you receive money from AGLC as a nonprofit organization, your board cannot contain or hold more than 25% of its membership in political appointments who are voting. So by removing that voting from political appointments, their board can remain a manageable size. They get funding from several municipalities, including the City of Grande Prairie, and that has caused undue pressure on their board. They are 100% moved into Center 2000 in the downstairs, and they're very excited by how much space they have, and were instrumental in getting all of their funding in place. So they do have money to furnish the new facility and to make sure they have the appropriate shelving. You can check them out as of May 22nd, which is the Wednesday following Victoria Day long weekend, as that is their grand opening in their new place. And over the last year, they had some interesting statistics that I thought would be enlightening. Even though that they were in this long process of moving and had to really restrict the amount of material that they accepted over the last year, they did accept the Roger Field phones, which included 22 framed watercolors and 639 architectural drawings of buildings in the community. So any of those buildings that we know are field buildings, those blueprints are probably now at the archives. They're also in the process of converting 37,187 databases from an access program to a program called Access to Memory, and that makes it a lot easier for people to remotely access the information that they have on site. So currently that process is about 54% complete. It is very manual. Every piece of data needs to be double checked to make sure that it is in fact accurate and available on site. So that is a mammoth task that was designed to take place over 3 years, and they are on track for finishing that. Their website in 2023 was viewed 60,589 times from more than 6,000 individual users from 102 countries. And that kind of tells us that a lot of the times we don't feel that archives are important. They're like a silent part of our community. But in fact, that knowledge and that information is valuable to people around the world. Their Facebook page has increased viewings by 12% in 2023, and they are eager to get going with all of their programming and running that through their new facility. So I really encourage you to check out the archives. It's a very beautiful place and certainly provides good service to the entire region and not just Grande Prairie. Then today and tomorrow, I will be attending the Mental Health Forum that's being held in conjunction with the Resource Center for Suicide Prevention and Northwest Polytechnic. This morning, I was able to attend the Tough Enough to Talk About It presentation. Tough Enough to Talk About It is was designed in Grande Prairie, and it's specifically to go into a workplace and discuss how you as a worker may be able to interact with a work friend whom you are concerned about. Maybe your friend or your coworker is not looking like he's doing well mentally, and what do you say to help that person find help to prevent suicide in the workplace? They run a number of programs, and I'm going to mention this because the last council meeting, Councillor Thiessen said that the youth group, our Youth Advisory Council, felt that there was not enough suicide and mental health information and training available to to youth in the community. So 2 particular groups. One is called Community Helpers. This is available across the province, including Grande Prairie, and it's free training available in schools and workplaces and community groups for people who have a natural tendency to help others. And what it does is, if you're a teenager, that your friends tell you when they're worried or they're concerned, it's to teach you as the listener to know when to go to get help, and when you can not worry too much about your friend. So it's really focuses on the various aspects of mental health, both good and bad, and gives teenagers the ability to recognize when they need to turn to adults for help and support. That training is provided free of charge, and it's usually delivered through the schools, such as the comms classes. The other group that is specific to teenagers are the Griffin Youth Group and the Phoenix Youth Group, which are workshops and social gathering points for teens who are struggling with feelings such as stress or self-compression or technology safety. This is also a program that's offered free of charge in the community. It's also a program that was initiated and developed in Grande Prairie and is now delivered in many mental health facilities across the country. Once again, it's to teach people, particularly youth, how to recognize when they're under stress and how to seek help or manage that stress better. So there's 3 of the programs that they offer at Resource Center for Suicide Prevention. I really look forward to spending the day tomorrow at the Mental Health Forum. And if you have an interest or want to know more, I would encourage you to drop by the college at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, register for the conference, and spend the day there. And that, Mayor Clayton, is my report.
Thanks for that, Councillor Blackmore. I'll go relatively quickly. Had the privilege of reading the proclamation and attend the flag raising for the Sikh Heritage Month. Thank you to councillors that were able to join. I attended the hydrogen conference. With that, had great conversations on the future of hydrogen and potential opportunities in our region. Also, during that same time in Edmonton, I was invited to a roundtable discussion with WestJet, other municipalities and corporate leaders in attendance. WestJet indicated that they're looking to increase service in Alberta 8 to 9%. They do have Grande Prairie on their radar, and in the media in Edmonton mentioned that Grande Prairie was a focus area. So I hope to see additional service through that conversation. Also, with council colleagues, attended an update on the urban forestry strategy. It was a good workshop, good conversation. Attended the Chamber Spring Business Showcase. Also, as mentioned, the Alberta Rural Medical Education Expansion MOU signing. Truly a great day in Grande Prairie and in this region, as we are that much closer to having a well-served healthcare system in our region as we train physicians starting this fall. So a great win for our region for sure. I attended the National Day of Mourning with Councillor Thiessen. Where I read the proclamation, but also had an opportunity to listen to stories, and one in particular of an individual who lost her son in a workplace tragedy. It just reminds you how important it is to have those conversations. It's not just the employees or the employer's responsibility. It's our responsibility as parents and coworkers to educate our colleagues and our family in regards to workplace safety. Through the Mid-Size City Mayor's Caucus that I sit on, had numerous discussions on Bill 20 in regards to what that could mean, and look forward to future conversations with Minister McIver and my colleagues in regards to opportunities and concerns in Bill 20. Also had a meeting with Dr. Soyumi, who is a new emergency medical specialist moving to the region. Met her family and her husband, who I also encouraged to move to the region. He's currently doing some remote work, a little bit in Airdrie and a little bit in Saskatchewan. And so I indicated how much easier it would be if he lived where his family is going to live. So that was a good conversation. Also read the proclamation for Youth Week and toured the Sunrise House facility. Such an incredible facility, something really we should be proud of. Council and City of Grande Prairie had a significant role in that, the facility coming to fruition, so it's something we really should be proud of. Brought greetings on behalf of Council to the FCSS Provincial Network Conference, which was just last week in our region, and it was a good conversation around what FCSS does as well. They were introduced to our community and the great opportunities in Grande Prairie. So thank you to the organizers of that event. Attended the Steps for Life on Saturday and spoke and brought greetings on behalf of Council, which is tied into the National Day of Mourning, but really an opportunity where they do a small fundraising piece to support families in education and share the story in regards to workplace safety and workplace illness. On Sunday, attended the National Day of Mourning for Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women, Girls, and Two-Spirited at Muskosipi Park. It was a great ceremony and really special to see that the Saskatchewan women's hockey team showed up to attend the walk. So they showed up in the red T-shirts, got off the bus, and showed up at Muskosipi Park. So that was great to see the girls, prior to their first practice, come out for the walk. And as mentioned, attended the National Aboriginal Hockey Championships pipe ceremony last night. We're going to close as we're heading to the opening ceremonies. And as I mentioned earlier, 7 men's teams, 7 women's teams. Alberta men's played tonight. Alberta women played earlier today. I didn't hear if they won or not. Games take place until Friday, with the final closing ceremonies being on Sunday. So round robin, all games at the Design Works Centre, both sheets of ice. So get out and cheer. I think, as always, Grande Prairie did a great job to show up to support and volunteers, and our sponsors and our community just really loves to highlight what we offer in regards to world-class facilities and our special hospitality. So thank you to the organizers of that. I look forward to seeing a few games over the next few days. And with that, I will call the meeting adjourned. We'll see you soon. Thank you.